Hi, so this is going to be a unscripted sort of ramble video about how I feel about the Switch 2 after receiving it, that sort of thing. Unedited, blah blah blah. Quick disclaimer. This is being recorded with the Elgato HD60S, which is an oldish capture card. Excuse me. And you're not going to get 4K or HDR or anything in this video, sadly, but you know, also this will not be a representation of how it feels in handheld mode or anything like that, just because I've not really done that at all yet. So here's the console itself. These are the games I've sort of installed. Most of them are my old cartridges. You also got the Nintendo Switch 2 edition of things and that. The console came with Mario Kart World, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. The Zelda games in there, Nintendo Switch 2 edition of course, but you know, Pokemon Scarlet's received a Nintendo Switch 2 update, so has Mario Odyssey, Mario 3D World. I think 3D All-Stars has as well, though granted I'm not sure of what they could have done there to improve it. But most of these are just like frame rate updates and things like that, I suppose for frame logic. So I'll show off Mario Kart first. I've got a decent chunk of things to say about this game because I've finished all the Grand Prix, that sort of thing. So the main thing that I sort of, if I go on the map, there's all sorts to do here, in sort of free roam I suppose. Rainbow Road is actually around here, but it does not show on this map for some reason. You can't enter it in free roam. So these are all the new modes. I've played a few rounds of Knockout Tour, but I'm not really sold on the idea yet. I think it's one that will be quite rewarded with online gameplay, but in single player I don't think it's very fun. Grand Prix are alright, though I'm not a fan of the this new like intermission tracks mode. And if I go into a versus race, oh yeah, I'll show off all the new characters. So they've added quite a few weird ones like these, and you get these all from Kamek transformations in the actual game. I think that's how you unlock them. Like, I know I unlocked the Pianta from that, for example, and I think there's still a few more I need to unlock. But yeah, so those are all quite fun to play, to be honest. I really like that they've added that. These are the carts. You can see a few returning ones like the Bee Dasher, for example, and the Biddy Bug is there, or Buggy Bud. You don't have individual wheels anymore, which, to be honest, I don't mind, or individual gliders. You know, that's just whatever, really. So I'll get in this because I like this bike. It defaults com difficulty to easy, which I'm not a fan of. So here's the map. You have Rainbow Road. That's the sort of secret track almost. But if you go to any of these, you can either choose to play the track by itself, or you can have an intermission. So you don't actually play the track itself, you play on the intermission to this next track, and then you play a lap of that or whatever. Which I think is really silly, but whatever. The main reason I'm not a fan of the intermission is purely because of the one lap thing. So, for example, in one of the GPs, you go from Choco Mountain to Toad's Factory, right? I think it's the Lightning Cup. And in that, you only get to play a lap of Toad's Factory and you're done before the theme song ends. It's really stupid. I think there's potential with it for sure, but I'm yet to sort of see that potential. I will say, in terms of like map designs, I haven't really got much to know about this area. This area is quite nice. You know, there's various different bits there. The snowy bit's alright. But the best bit overall is definitely the Bowser's Castle bit, because it's clearly the part where they put the most work into the sort of the area surrounding it, and there's lots of missions and stuff to do there. These bits are cool as well. Like Great Question Block Ruins is quite a fun track. Peach Beach as well. I think I'll actually go into free roam. I wasn't sold on the idea of the world being completely connected, but I think in retrospect it's actually not that bad, because you can drive around it like this, and sort of everything does feel connected in some respects. So you have these, show you on the map, if you look in the bottom left, you have P switches, O blocks, which I'm not entirely sure what putting all of them on track unlocks yet, and Peach Medallion coins, which I'm also not sure of the reward. And then you got the characters around the tracks and that, but you know, it's quite nice because you have all these P switch missions, so I'll do one now. So there's a few really good ones, and there's a few which admittedly aren't that interesting, like this one here. Also, on another note, the physics feel super weird in this game. Just like, from like, I've gotten used to them now, but I think people who are switching over and say maybe are a bit of a better player at 8 Deluxe will struggle with getting used to these. And also there's no 200 in this game, which I think is ridiculous. I think not having 200 in a game like this is a really poor decision on Nintendo's part. Especially with the longer tracks, the intermission ones. So let's do another one here. This is a bit more of an interesting one. Note the wind on the way to the goal. So I don't know how I managed to do that, but there we go. I felt like I was about to fall off on every single opportunity there. But like, say we're here, we could either, we want to go to Sky Sunday, right? We could either fast travel there, or we can, so I figured this out by myself, but, oh whoops. We can drive over to this area, and as you can see it's all the way up there. However, there are pipes that will take us up onto the main path, and that's another thing in this game. So if you're struggling with getting up terrain, I will get onto the trick system in a bit, but yeah, if you're struggling due to that, they in like areas with like this with lots of mobility, they will include these pipes which just take you up. So now I'm on the actual track for Sky Sunday, which I think is really neat. I suppose this gives me a great time to talk about the trick system. So I think there's a lot of potential in these sort of railings. I'm going the wrong way. However, I'm not convinced that they're in a finalised state. So the ways to get on them are pretty simple actually. You can, oh, I'm back down here now, but alright. Yeah, you could use a feather, you can drive up to them. Oh, I've fallen down. That's fine, you can actually just fast travel to the actual course surface in those scenarios, like right here. So yeah, you can sort of like drive on them, but there's a button. So what I'm doing now, and then that's meant to enable you into a trick. However, and I don't mean this lightly, it's one of the worst mechanics I've ever seen in a video game. I don't think this was playtested properly, because you have to build up momentum for arguably way too long, especially on tight tracks like say Bowser's Castle, where you have like a fraction of, not a fraction, but like an entire second, or maybe even less at most, to determine how you're going to, I activated the panel there, to determine how you're like going to get on that. You don't have long at all, and so you're more often than not just not going to have enough build up in time for it to be operational. Like if you saw how long that took there, and now yes I can go on that, but yeah. And also you see tricking off things is almost always going to be your best friend because of that. So this world is really nice though. Like some areas are a bit more interesting than others. I think what I will show off before I sort of talk a bit more about things is Bowser's Castle, which is probably the track I've spent the most time on in free roam. So this is the whole track section going straight across here. However, you know, they've built little bits around here and things like that. You can go into the centre there where it's almost like a food court of sorts. You know, instead of just having the track layouts, they've actually made it a sort of fully breathing, existing open world, which I think is really impressive. And I'll show you now, this is really cool. If I jump off here, so this is part of one of the intermission tracks, I will say, but the area surrounding it, they've made it super interesting. You know, if you look straight ahead there, that is a battle course there, actually. I would also say, on a technical note, I've not had any frame hitches. My capture card is not the best, which is causing some almost like frame stutters, at least on my output end. But I can promise that if you're just having this hooked up to a TV, you will not have any issues whatsoever. So yeah, like, this is super cool. And because of the P switches as well, if you're trying to get them all, for example, I don't know the number, but if you're trying to get them all, you know, you're almost guaranteed to be going into these areas. And they all feel like unique in some way. Yeah, you can see I've had fun with this game. Something else that I will brush on is, I'm not sure of the best way to show this off, but certain tracks have got two existences in the Grand Prix. The ones, there might be more, but the ones at the top of my head are Peach Stadium and Crown City. So at the end of which Grand Prix is it? Let's see. At the end of the Shell Cup, you go to the Peach Stadium terminal, quote unquote, and you also go to the second part of Crown City. Mushroom Cup is one part of Crown City. I've not played Peach Stadium in Versus Race yet, but the Versus Race of Crown City is like reminiscent of those tour tracks with like no lap is the same, that sort of thing. I think that's a great concept, but the way they've implemented it in Grand Prix I'm not huge on, because you know, Peach Stadium on its own in the Special Cup is a really good track, but instead you're spending like a couple of minutes driving to it just to have, like, I'll show you in free roam actually, it's quite funny. Instead you literally just got I think it's below this. Yeah. Instead you literally just drive, it's so silly. You drive into this bit and then do a lap around it. Like this, I don't know what shape this is, to be honest, but yeah, that's the whole course. What were Nintendo thinking? I just think that's really silly, because it just, I don't know, I don't even feel like I need to explain it. There's just a few nitpicks I have for this game. I think that it's going to be a lot of fun. You know, I don't feel like I've completed it, even though I have completed all the Grand Prix. I think there's more for me to discover, and, you know, more tracks for me to almost figure out if I like or not, as one lap on a track after however long of intermission does not give you enough time to determine if you enjoy a track or not, in my opinion. Yeah, that's about that. And then to finish this off, I'll talk about Breath of the Wild. Yes, this is a Nintendo Switch 1 game. Technically, no, this is a Wii U game that they've now put on here. But, you know, this game is stunning. I've not gotten far, really. But this was actually the main reason I brought a Switch 2, or I suppose they didn't buy it. My girlfriend brought me it for my birthday, but this is the main reason I wanted one. I've been playing Breath of the Wild on my Steam Deck, on Cemu, which is, you know, sorry Nintendo, but that's what I've been doing. Locked to 40 FPS. And, you know, this is 60 FPS, especially in an area which I remember the original game struggled with, and it's just flawless. You know, what can I eat, actually? I can. You know, just do random things and the game is fine. Something that I will note is an issue with this is with the upped resolution, you know, especially in 4K, though this is noticeable in 1080p, and you know, the upped frame rate, HDR being added, things like that, though you won't see HDR in this video because, yeah, I don't have HDR supported capture card. You get to see just how awful some textures really are. It's easily enough masked on, you know, a Wii U or Switch 1, especially in handheld mode, but in Doctor mode on a Switch 2, you're really going to notice it. And it's not impacted my gameplay, really. It's not affected my enjoyment of the game, but it is something worth mentioning, I think. I'm not entirely sure what I'm doing. I'm just pissing about. But, you know, this and hopefully Tears of the Kingdom when I get around to it, I've made a rule to myself that I'm not going to touch it until I get Breath of the Wild 100%, which I will be doing in addition, or I suppose in combination with Zelda Notes, which is a really cool piece of kit that they've put in the Nintendo Switch Online app. There's things like voice memories, which I'm not sure how much of those I'll be doing. Navigation, which is the big one, so you've basically got like a Garmin on your phone now for navigating the Zelda world. I feel like that can almost be a bit ironic due to how much this game sort of begs you to explore its world without guidance, but I suppose the game's been out 8 years now and maybe we're past that point and they expect everyone that's using it to have already completed the game, which is not my position really. I can't really go to the one place in this game where, is it the Korok Forest, where, you know, the game just goes mental on like the older systems, but I fingers crossed that that'll just be perfect. Yeah. I've not really got much to say about these games because they've already existed for years and, you know, it's Breath of the Wild. Another thing I'll talk about Zelda Notes though is the daily bonus, so I've already spun mine yesterday, but when that resets, it resets every 24 hours, it doesn't go off a day integer, but once that's done, you can just spin a wheel, and then you either get like, so my one there was a health bonus, you could either get that, or you could get like a stamina bonus, that sort of thing, like a recovery item. You can repair broken swords, whatever. It's really nice. I think as well I'll show off. It's probably the worst place to show it off actually. Let's look around this way. Yeah. And it's probably not the best time of day, but you know, I think that looks quite nice. It looks a lot better in terms of depth distance than they did on older systems, as you'd expect. But oh, whoops. I am really enjoying this system. It's just nice to know that Nintendo finally gave us like a console that's not the absolute bollocks when it comes to hardware. This has been rumoured to be equivalent to say a PS4 Pro, however we've got technology like DLSS now that, you know, gives us maybe better graphics than you'd get around the time of a PS4 Pro's sort of release date. And yeah, I'm going to continue to enjoy it, I'm going to continue to play my games. And yeah, thank you for watching. If you decided to get this far, I hope my rambles made sense. I am really happy I have this thing, and I'm going to continue to use it. Bye bye.